So hi everyone. I'm really honored to be here with Debra Pacio, and we have an exciting update. So before we get into introduction here, I really would just want to thank the African Diaspora Network and just having this amazing collaboration that will begin in the next month. And we're pretty much working together to highlight some of the bidders of Africa's future awardees. And these are 11 amazing entrepreneurs across Africa who are building really amazing companies and transforming the continent in their own rights. And I was just lucky to meet them this morning and just hear a little bit about the stories, but they're going to be on the podcast for the next few weeks, and we're gonna give you guys updates as we go, which is pretty exciting. And so, but I have Debra here. She is, she helps with the African Diaspora Network. She's the Entrepreneurship and Community Engagement Manager, and she's gonna introduce herself a little bit more. But as you guys know, to all our listeners, we know the premise of this podcast is to share stories of diverse founders and investors building businesses in underserved markets to create both local and global impact. And I believe this collaboration will really bring to light some of the people that are making a fundamental change on the continent of Africa. And that's why I'm really excited that Debra is here to just give us a highlight about first the African Diaspora Network, the bidders of Africa's future awardees, and how, just how valuable it is to highlight these entrepreneurs. So I'll just go right into it. Debra, thank you so much for being on the pod. It's a pleasure to have you. Please, just if you can give us a bit background about yourself, and we'll get right into it.
Fantastic. And thank you, Jacob, for having me join you on Doers Within Us. It's great to be a part of your podcast and to really set the context for the Builders of Africa's Future series. A little bit about myself. As you mentioned, my name is Debra Pacio, and I am the Entrepreneurship Programs and Community Engagement Manager at African Diaspora Network, also known as ADN. And this is my first year full-time with the organization, but I've been a contractor with ADN since 2016. So really since the first flagship event that we hold, the African Diaspora Investment Symposium, I've had the honor of really being a part of the behind the scenes work of really developing the themes, the content for our symposiums, and really seeing the growth of the organization over the past several years. It's been exciting to see the launch of enterprise accelerators like Builders of Africa's Future, and this past year also our Accelerating Black Leadership and Entrepreneurship program for Black entrepreneurs in the US. So it's been sort of great seeing the growth and transformation of ADN as we seek to really support entrepreneurs all over the globe.
That's amazing. Thanks for that very eloquent presentation of what you guys do. And I think that's what got me really excited to be a part of this. And just having a sneak peek of what you guys do this morning has been incredible. So I recorded this episode on April 28th. I'm really excited about, just kind of what is going to be next year, and seeing the growth of some of the people that are on the platform. But for us to take a step back, I would love to just hear a little bit about yourself before ADN. Can you just please share with us so our listener can just learn about a little bit about you? How did you, where did you grow up? What was the beginning? Let's take us back to the very beginning, if you can share with us.
Absolutely. So for myself, I was actually born in the Philippines. I was born in one of the colder, more mountainous regions of the Philippines, Baguio City. And I was only there for a few years. I was there until I was 3 years old. And then my mom, my sister, and we flew to the United States so that I could meet my dad, and his family was here. And my dad is actually from the Philippines as well, but they were able to, immigrate to the US, really seeking better opportunities, thanks to my uncle who was able to pursue medicine here in the US. So it's been great, I think, just having that lens of, being an immigrant in the United States and really understanding that, there's a lot of opportunity here. And it really drives me to want to see those opportunities for other parts of the globe, in the Philippines, on the continent. And so I think a lot of that has shaped my view of the world, really looking at things from a very global lens. And I guess before ADN, by training or by trade, I'm actually an educator. I was trained as a classroom teacher, and I think a lot of that is my belief in education and the power of that. Because growing up, I think I would say that I grew up definitely more in like a low income family. It was not easy, I think, just sort of, being in Silicon Valley and having the challenges of, witnessing what that income gap can mean. But I'm so grateful having the privilege of, going to a public high school where I learned how to be resourceful. I learned how to be creative, was really grounded in what it meant to meet people from many walks of life. And then later on, really seeing a different part of the world. I attended a local university. I was very honored to go to Stanford on a full scholarship for both my bachelor's and my master's. But it really taught me just meeting people who came from backgrounds that weren't low income, understanding the access to resources that they had, and really learning from them, how to navigate I would say parts of, professions that I wasn't familiar with at the time. So it was definitely I think a catalyst for me in my openness, going beyond education and really wanting to explore other spheres.
That's incredible, and thanks for just sharing just your journey. I think one is like, I really love to visit the place where you grew up. It sounds very fun. The mountainous sites. I think it's good for sightseeing, but I don't do. I'm not more for, like, exercise is not my thing. So climbing those mountains and stuff might not be the ideal place. But it sounds like that was a very good, like, kind of incubation space you were in, and learning about your family and just the transition to America, and taking advantage of the opportunities here is something that is highly commendable, and it kind of reflects to what you're doing at ADN. So thanks so much for sharing that. That's truly inspirational.
Thank you.
For this journey, and as I'm probably have talked about this offline, I presume you had some really instrumental figures that help you shape the way you see the world, but also how you are thinking about making an impact within ADN. Can you just please share some mentors that have been around you, or people that you look up to that has really guided you to what you're doing right now at ADN?
Definitely. I would say my earliest mentor, I have an older cousin who was actually a journalist, a reporter for the San Jose Mercury News. And, she's also a freelance writer right now. And I think she really drove me in my love of storytelling. I think from an early age, I really developed this interest and curiosity in learning about people's narratives, which is why I have so much respect for, the podcast and the work that you do, Jacob. And, that led me to develop my own writing skills and to cultivate that. And that really opened the door for me when it came to meeting one of my mentors. I would say Almaz Nagash. She's the founder and executive director of ADN, but she's also one of the first supervisors I ever had. My first internship was actually with her when I was a young university student. I'd pursued a community service work study program, and Almaz was working at Catholic Charities of Santa Clara County at the time, and I was assigned to support her Step Up Silicon Valley initiative. And so as a young professional, I think I really learned what it meant to be in a workspace. And later on, after I graduated from university, she was, interested in seeing whether I would like to support ADN, specifically contributing my writing skills. So I think, it's been great really learning from her. She's a wonderful visionary. I love how she, is able to really convey the importance of supporting communities globally, but also locally. So I'm really grateful to have seen what that can look like in a nonprofit space, and how she's able to engage stakeholders from all sorts of sectors in this.
That's incredible. And I think just having someone that has done this really well, I think it reflects to what you're doing right now and how well you're doing it. And I'll have to say you're doing an amazing job based on what I I've seen so far. So a shout out to all your mentors and to Amars and just the people really setting the right example, right? How you're doing your amazing work. So I'm incredibly grateful to mentors. I personally have had mentors that have shaped who I think about the world. It's hard not to do without them. So now, for us now to get into, I'm sure people are listening to this episode. Are like, what is this ADN? What's African Diaspora Network? So if you don't mind, just giving us just a brief background or just what you think people need to know about this amazing organization.
Absolutely. So African Diaspora Network, or ADN, we are a Silicon Valley-based nonprofit organization that promotes entrepreneurship and also economic development on the African continent and the communities in which the diaspora lives. And so we really seek to bring together Africans, diasporans, and also friends of Africa to really actualize the potential and activate the entrepreneurial spirit of the continent. So we really want to mobilize intellectual, but also financial resources to create a brighter future for Africa as a whole. And so we are now, I believe, around 11 years old, going to be 12 years old this coming August as an organization. And it's been great, as I mentioned, just seeing the growth of the organization over time.
Yeah, which is phenomenal. And I mean, I recently just started following the work you guys do, and beyond just what we're going to talk about, the Builders of Africa's Future awardees, and just one of the, I think, many programs that you guys run. I've just been blown away by the programs you guys run, the accelerator that you guys have, and just many other things that you guys do for the continent, but also like the networks that are integral to the success, right, of how we think of the what Africa should be like, building this community of really change makers. So it's just great work for almost more than a decade of hard work. So just thanks to you and all your colleagues, present, future, and past, for the great work you guys do. So just getting to the Builders of Africa's Future awardees, or the program, which is the collaboration that we're going to have. Can you just please tell us how you got started? And I'm fortunate I was able to attend the early session this morning, but if you don't mind sharing that, that'll be super helpful.
Yes, I would say the origin story of Builders of Africa's Future does begin with our flagship program, which is the African Diaspora Investment Symposium. And I mentioned that this was really that convening that took place in Silicon Valley in 2016. And it really began as, us wanting to understand, can we bring together Africans, diasporans, and friends of Africa to co-create and collaborate and partner to come up with solutions. And we've seen that this is possible. So from there, we continued the symposium annually, and now we're in our 7th year. But in 2018, that's really when the discussion of, we want to bring really grassroots African entrepreneurs at the forefront of this. We're convening all of these people. There are people joining who are investors. How do we really spotlight and highlight the work of these people who are building Africa's future? And 2018, that's when we held what was originally the Builders of Africa's Future Awards. So this program didn't start off as an enterprise accelerator. It really began as an awards ceremony recognizing the builders at the end of the symposium. But over time, we've really been able to enhance the offerings of Builders of Africa's Future. So in following years, we partnered with Santa Clara University's Miller Center for Entrepreneurship to provide a workshop and a pitch training before the showcase. And eventually we were able to also bring builders to Silicon Valley to visit companies like eBay and to pitch live. And so there's been some development of this, but of course, with the pandemic, we had to pivot, and it's been virtual for the most part since I believe 2021 last year we had to hold it virtually, but 2020 was in person. So it's transformed, but this year we're very excited to be partnering with the African Management Institute of Kenya, who will be providing a very thorough entrepreneurial training virtually to the entrepreneurs as they prepare for their June pitch day. So it's been a progression, but we're very excited that we've been able to really enhance the offerings of this program to include everything from an enterprise training to mentorship, but always we've had this showcase or this pitch session that has been a part of it.
That's incredible. And I know is this the first year you guys are having the sisters? I've forgotten the sisters or something.
Yes, so we have had sisters awarded in the past. So last year we had one sister participant, but I'm glad you mentioned that, Jacob. So we do have a partnership with the Conrad and Hilton Foundation. And this actually began as a conversation with sisters really attending the symposium in 2020. And we engaged them as speakers because we recognize that these Catholic sisters who we met through the Miller Center for Social Entrepreneurship, we recognize that oftentimes their work isn't recognized as entrepreneurship because it's seen as more of a charity model. So we partnered with the Conrad and Hilton Foundation to provide them with a preparatory training so that they have this training on how to transition from a charity model to really more sustainable social enterprise development. And this is our first year having 3 sisters. All 3 of them completed a preparatory training by the African Management Institute of Kenya, and we're just honored to have 3 of them be a part of our cohort of 11.
That's incredible. I just want to highlight that because, I mean, it shows that entrepreneurship can come from anywhere, and successful enterprises doesn't have to follow this traditional framework of, the ideal entrepreneur always think of like a male who has had access to certain opportunities. But one thing that is really incredible is that you guys are providing the integrated structure that is necessary for them to be extraordinary in their work, and that not that traditional in the sense of how we think of entrepreneurs in Africa, which I think that's the beauty of what you guys are doing, is highlighting and supporting entrepreneurs that truly can make an impact in Africa that sometimes they've been underserved, right? Or under-resourced. So that was something that I felt was worth mentioning in the work you guys are doing. So just in addition to that, so how do you guys, and maybe just the application process, but what do you guys look for in entrepreneurs, and how have you guys, picked these amazing 11 entrepreneurs who are going to be working, who are going to be part of this program?
That's a great question. I would say you're definitely looking at, of course, they have to be grassroots African enterprises. Many are early stage, but some are mid stage. And we often have a mix of nonprofit and for-profit businesses. But I think the commonality is that they're addressing these key community needs through technology or some kind of a differentiated business model so that it's not necessarily a Western clone. And really, they can come from a variety of sectors: health, education, energy. We've had agriculture, financial inclusion. But I would definitely say that really the core component is that we do want the enterprise to have some sort of impact on the well-being of communities, and for them to be catalysts really of developmental progress on the continent. And so we have some, technical criteria, of course. We do look for organizations that have been established legal entities for at least 6 months in operation. It really should be a running business, not necessarily just a prototype or a pitch. We do hope for, evidence of traction, whether that's usage, revenue, metrics. And so in our evaluation process, the information's provided by applicants, like website, tangible products, things like that, helps us in really determining who the final cohort is.
That's amazing. And just as a follow-up to that, how does having a podcast like this, how does that help kind of showcase this? Because I know one thing is just observing some of them this morning, and I'm grateful that this podcast is working on highlighting the stories, but specifically, how do you think making sure your stories are being heard and valued will make a difference in the work that they do?
Yes, no, we're so grateful for this podcast opportunity for the entrepreneurs. And I think it aligns with some of our, part of our founding, mission of Builders of Africa's Future. As I mentioned, it started out as an awards program to really recognize them. And even to this day, a core component of the program is to really boost the brand visibility and investment potential of these entrepreneurs, particularly in Silicon Valley, but also now that we've gone virtual, nationally, globally, et cetera. And so I think this podcast provides a different lens into the work of the entrepreneur. I think when the entrepreneurs share the story of their business, oftentimes it's focused on the pitch deck or it's focused on the metrics, which are indeed important. But I think having this podcast as I would say having this podcast provides a way for the entrepreneurs to share their story, their narrative, their mission of how they really came to found the organization in a more in-depth way. So I think it provides a nice balance or complement as people get to know their work.
I completely agree. And I think I'm just so lucky that I was fortunate to meet you guys and do this work to showcase the stories. More importantly, I see a lot that, for every successful enterprise, there are always people that are committed to the cause, and also there's a lot of downs and struggles that sometimes it's not really brought to light, and it's not always the case that we have to tell all these pitfalls, but at the same time is appreciating the journey that they went through. And hopefully this is what I can showcase by meeting some of these incredible folks. So I really want to thank you guys for making this possible. I'm really excited to meet all the Builders for Africa's Future, which I think is a great name for what you guys came up with. And thank you so much for just having this work out in a way that we can really streamline some of these amazing stories to the world. So I'm really excited about this, and I think this is going to be just so fun to just get to know these people more in depth. So thank you to you and your colleagues for making this happen. So now just go into the kind of the final piece of this episode, and just something that I really ask our guests is just to get to know what they have learned and any inspiration that they can share with our audience from their work and just the people they have met. And one thing, as someone that you have worked with entrepreneurs, or at least have some insights on what it takes to be an entrepreneur, do you have any advice for people or our listeners specifically on people that are trying to start something, or people that are already starting, that have already built something and are trying to grow? Do you have any tips on them on entrepreneurship that you would love to share with the listeners?
That's a good question. I know. So I myself am not an entrepreneur, and I know we've talked about that, Jacob. But you have like a more insightful look into it. But I think by the traditional definition, I don't know that I can provide advice on the more components of business. But in terms of the journey, I would say that from these accelerator programs, one of the biggest takeaways that I see among entrepreneurs who are put into these cohort and co-learning settings is that a lot of the value comes from the network that you build. And from the entrepreneurs from our Accelerating Black Leadership and Entrepreneurship, it was beautiful to see the sense of community that was being built, even in a virtual setting. And for the builders, even though many of them come from, Tanzania, Zambia, Morocco, Ghana, very different places, Uganda, there are still avenues for them, I hope, to connect and to really build a sense of community with one another. And I feel like that is something that's lasting, where the learning will often take place outside of the traditional quote unquote classroom setting.
Yeah, that's a great advice. I see that a lot. Like the power of true genuine connections can go a long way beyond the structured frameworks of just like meeting for a program. Beyond that, if you can maintain those relationships, it can really go a long way. So I second that 100%. It's great advice. Based on just your exposure to entrepreneurship, working with these amazing African entrepreneurs or meeting them and profiling them through your work as a community manager, has there been any resources that has helped guide you on how to think about Africa or just about African entrepreneurship or investing in Africa or anything like that that you suggest for people to just check out? Maybe it's a book or a podcast or anything that you find it has been resourceful for your work, or something that you see is a way for us to learn more about just entrepreneurship in Africa. Anything you have in mind?
So that's a really good question. And I think in terms of my role, like one of the things I'm just very grateful for is that I'm always learning, within African Diaspora Network because of the types of events that we hold. So, a lot of what I learn about the continent really comes from the experts, the people who we invite to speak at our events, whether that's the symposium or our impacted innovation forums. I think those are a monthly virtual series where we invite experts to really talk about the trends and occurrences in Africa, whether that's in agriculture, connectivity, healthcare, et cetera. So I'm just grateful that I have the opportunity to really learn firsthand about what's going on in the continent from these experts. And so I would encourage listeners, to hop in and join those virtual sessions, because I feel like it's given me a greater sense of what's happening in the now, more than an article or a book could.
Oh, that is, you know what? This is the first time I've gotten this answer, and it's actually, it's a very interesting one. It's a very interesting response. And I think just the session this morning really, I think you touched a little bit on that, having that, like kind of immersing yourself into these live sessions can really transform. And by the way, at the description of this episode, I'm going to include African Diaspora Network. You can check out some of the events that they have. I'm assuming it's on the events page or somewhere on the website, right? People can
Yes.
You can follow them on that. So one thing that I would love to also hear from you is, has there been any guiding principle or advice that you've gotten that has really shaped your career or just how you think about the work you do, that if you don't mind sharing with us? There's always, maybe in most, I'll presume in most of very successful people like you, there's always some statement that you follow, a principle that guides you, that maybe came from someone or somewhere you read something. Do you have any of that? And do you mind sharing with us any advice or maybe a mantra that you follow through that gives you the I would say the energy, or just a positive mindset of the work? Because I know the work you do is really hard, but is there something that really guides you that says, just keep going and keep pushing?
I think that's such a great question. I think in the sense that I'm a lover of quotes. I absolutely love to memorize, quotes and mantras. So it's funny that I'm somewhat blanking right now, because usually I have a bunch at the back of my pocket. But one, I think, piece of guiding advice that's really helped me at this season in my career. I'd mentioned to you that previously I was a classroom teacher and educator. And, I've pivoted between nonprofit, higher education, and secondary education during this period of my life. And one thing that's really helped to ground me is, really remembering the phrase, I am enough. And I think I say that because I remember at my teaching role when I was leaving, the principal was kind enough to say, word on the street, Debra, is that you're a perfectionist. And, I told him, yes, definitely, I know I am. And I know that's part of the contributing factor to why I need to take a step back. And I think perfectionism, of course, is very much seen, I think, at the surface is a very positive thing, but I think I've really learned that, there is a point where you have to remind yourself that what you do is enough. Otherwise, you can't move on, you can't grow, right? Or you're always going to be paused wondering if something could be better. And I'm big on improvement, but I've also learned that sometimes you need to accept that there will be, fault, accept that there will be gaps in order to sort of move through life. And that's really helped me. I think I'm seeing every day more as a learning journey rather than seeing every day as, oh, I hope the day went great. I hope the day went perfect. And I think that's really helped me to have more peace and I think more happiness in my everyday, and to realize that when I think I am enough, it extends beyond my job. And it extends to just thinking about myself and my family and, my friends and loved ones. And I feel a lot more like what I do in life isn't defining, but that it's just a part of how I contribute to this world. And I'm grateful for that opportunity.
That is I need advice from you. That was a great response. That's advice for me as well. And I think many people that are listening out there, in the world we live in, and everything looks like we have to get things done right away. We have to be our best selves every day. To other entrepreneurs out there, trying to make sure your customers get the best product or services, and you want to make sure your team is intact, you hire the best people. All of that comes with a lot of pressure to just be really good. In some cases, I presume, and this is just I might be completely wrong, but most of the entrepreneurs I meet are perfectionist-ish. They want the product to really reflect what they had in mind, and it matches what the engineers are talking about, what the investors are requiring from them. And I what you just said, I think is crucial in just growing as an entrepreneur, or anybody, irrespective of your career, but also what you're trying to build in the world, because it's all about the process, right? It's not the end product. So I really love that answer. I think I have to put that as our, I have to tag that somewhere. For all the people that are listening, but also for the builders of Africa's future as they go through this program. So thank you so much. That was a really amazing answer. To just add on that, so, and you have alluded to that based on the answer you just gave, but can you just, in terms of those, how do you see yourself through the lens of the work you do, but beyond that? I know you're from the Philippines. Your last name means peace. There's a lot of components that you have. At this point in time, what do you think, like, you want people to think about your work, or about you as you do your work, then in Silicon Valley, but also how people see the work you do from a big picture, right? How do you, simply put, how do you want your work to be remembered? Either through ADN or just in general. What is something that you want people to see, especially young women who are, coming from markets like the Philippines or Africa, that are trying to make a difference in the world? How do you want your life to be reflective in their stories? If it's something you'd love to share on that.
That's a great question. I think of two components, and I think the first one that comes to mind is, in doing this work with African Diaspora Network, I'm centered by, the humility of, recognizing that I'm not African and I'm not an African diasporan, but I recognize and feel a camaraderie being a part of the Philippine diaspora, and really understanding the challenges, the weights, the feeling of wanting to uplift your homeland when you are afar, in a nation that often provides more access to opportunity. So I'm always humbled by that. And I guess in that humility, I realize that my legacy is really just to do what I can each day. I think I always think that I think of a story. I feel like that's the best way that I can encapsulate it. I remember when I was in university, my resident assistant very nicely gave all of us just kind of a quote, a little card with the quote and the story in it. And the story was about this young boy on a beach, and he was throwing, I believe, stars, the sort of sea stars, the shellfish back into the water. And, an old man comes by and says, "Why are you doing that?" Because he sees that these stars are drying up on the beach. And, this boy is trying to throw as many as he can in. And the old man says, "You can't possibly help all of them." And then, the young boy picks up another star and he throws it into the ocean. And he said, "Well, it helped that one."
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm humbled by the realization that, the continent is big. The African continent is big. The Philippines has a giant population, and there's no way that you can touch the lives of everyone. But in the work that we do to touch the life of just one person, it does make a difference. And so I think that's what I want my legacy to be. It doesn't have to be big, but I want to, as cheesy as it sounds, I want to leave the world knowing that I left it better than when I entered. And I feel like I do that in the ways that I can.
Definitely. And I mean, newsflash, you're already doing the work that presumably can have a significant impact on a lot of people. And I think as interconnected the world is, to your story, even helping an African entrepreneur can go a long way to even go back and help people in the Philippines. It's so interconnected, and there's a lot of partnerships and collaboration that is going on right now. And I really love the fact that you really you said, if helping one person can really have a ripple effect, right? And it's a long-term impact on that. I'm just so excited for the podcast series with the amazing bidders for Africa Future awardees. I'm not just saying this out of abstract. I just had a sneak peek of some of them this morning, and I heard some of the companies and just how, just how proud they are just from their facial expressions on Zoom and what they are building. So I think it's going to be a really amazing journey to learn about them, and you being at the head to kind of help guide them and through this program. I'm confident that they'll have a really productive time, hopefully connect beyond that and fulfill your legacy, which I know you're a very humble person. It doesn't necessarily mean it's about you, but it's at the end of the day, it's about the work that they're doing in the community. So thank you so much for being the first guest on this series. I'm excited about the work that you're doing and the work that the role that I can play, the small role I can play in making sure your work is impactful and has a ripple effect across Africa and the world. So thank you so much for being here and for your time.
And thank you, Jacob. As I mentioned, it's such an honor to be able to set the context for the podcast series. And I know that the entrepreneurs, they have so much to unearth about their journeys as well. And we're excited that you'll have an opportunity to interview them as part of Doers Within Us.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to meeting them. And to all our listeners, this is Debra Pacio. She does incredible amount of work at ADN, which stands for African Diaspora Network. She, played a pivotal role in getting the Builders of Africa's Futures awardees into the program that she's kind of playing a significant role in, and just want to thank her for being here. So excited about this series, and I'm looking forward to get on this journey with you guys, to our listeners, for this 11 Builders of Africa Future awardees. So thank you for being here, and thanks again, Debra.
Thank you, Jacob.
Yes.
Bye.